Hello, and I want to welcome you to another episode of The Wicked Orchard Presents Reality and Fiction. I am your host, Sidra Owens, and today we are going to talk about the concept of work ethic. The idea of work ethic is something that comes up socially over and over again, first on a domestic level, when parents are dealing with their children, because children are just generally lazy and oftentimes don't show any kind of work ethic, don't put in any initiative of doing something when it needs to be done. So it's a particular sticking point between parents and children. But then on a larger scale in our society, work ethic comes up fairly often, especially as a division between the classes, because the elites seem to think that everyone else lack in work ethic. So with this topic in mind, I decided to do a little research and find out exactly where the concept of work ethic, as we see it, as we encounter it, has come from. So we're going to take it way back, and I'm not going to give too much detail because you can easily research this yourself. But I'm going to take it back. The first idea of work that I was able to find, and I'm sure it goes back further, stems from the Hebrews. And they viewed work as a curse devised by God to punish for the disobedience of Adam and Eve. That is how they felt about work. In the Old Testament, work wasn't seen as anything to be enjoyed, but more as something necessary to be done to prevent poverty and destitution. Let's see, the Greeks, they had a similar view of work. The Greeks saw work as a curse as well. They felt like manual labor is for the slaves, and that's what they had slaves for, to do the manual labor, to do the work that kept, their society going. Free men were supposed to pursue loftier goals like warfare and the arts, architecture, large-scale commerce. But the slaves, those are the ones that handled work in Greek society. The Romans, which kind of played off of Greek society, they felt like work was not meant for the elite of their society as well. The work was meant for the slaves. And in the beginning, as Rome was growing, they treated their slaves fairly well. But the larger that their society grew and the richer that their citizens became, the worse that they treated the ones that did the work, the worse that they treated the slaves. They saw them as cattle, and oftentimes treated them worse than cattle, since cattle weren't capable of caring for themselves and slaves were. The two occupations that Romans coveted were agriculture and business. They did not think that there was any virtue in work, but there was plenty of virtue associated with the wealth accumulated from working. Long after the Roman Empire fell, the idea of work migrated back to religion. The Calvinists, who were Protestant, and the followers of Martin Luther, who were Catholic, they believed that the purpose of work was to serve God. And the more work you did, it put you in a status where you would be able to die and have everlasting life, and anyone else who didn't do work would be condemned to hell. That was the thinking during the time of the Calvinists and the followers of Martin Luther. That idea spread across Europe and into America after, America was colonized, and the Protestants brought their idea of work ethic to the Americas. And over the years, over the centuries, that idea of work ethic stuck. So much so that we are still dealing with the idea of work ethic now. So my observation over the years has been that work ethic in the United States is basically this. If you work hard and get good grades, you'll graduate from high school and be able to go to college, where if you work hard, You get your degree. When you get out of college, you'll be able to get into the job or the field of your choosing, where you work hard to provide money for yourself, and where you eventually get married and you have a family. You continue to work hard until you have children and they start on the same road that you do. And then once you're done working hard, you can retire, and then you can have your nest egg that you grow old with until you die. That is the very basic and rather fantastical idea of work ethic in the United States. I would say it goes hand in hand with the myth of the American dream, because that idea of work ethic doesn't exist. So I am going to give you a brief story about when the idea of work ethic started to unravel for me. But before I get into it, let me explain how I feel about it. I mean, if you're going to support yourself in this society, you have to make money. So usually to make money, you have to work. Most of us do anyway. I haven't had as many jobs as some other people, but my idea for it is this. You apply for the job and you get it. Okay? You go to the job. If you're at the job, do the work. It never made any sense to me for people who go to the job intent on doing nothing. Why waste your time? Why waste anybody else's time? You can stay home and do nothing. I feel the same way about school. Kids don't have any choice. They have to go to school to be educated. If you have to be there, get the work done, do it once, do it well, and be done with it. I was not the kind of kid who understood the class clowns who came to school to cut up and act a fool every day. It got on my nerves because it disrupted what I'm doing, and it's a waste of time. If you don't want to come to school to learn, don't. Spare the rest of us your bullshit and go on somewhere. That's why I couldn't be a teacher. Because if I was a teacher and I had a student that was cutting up my class, I would put them out, and then their mother can come and complain about it. But if they don't have time or the initiative to sit down and learn, they wouldn't have to stay in my classroom. And that is why I have never wanted to and will never be a teacher. I'm an overachiever, so I wanted to do well in school, elementary school, middle school, and high school, and I did. I took all the tests, the PSATs, the SATs, the ACTs, all the tests I needed to take so I could get into college. My whole senior year, I didn't go to lunch because I was always in the guidance counselor's office looking up scholarships to apply for or to write essays for to help pay for my schooling, applying for different universities. I took AP courses when I was in high school and did fairly well in them, except for calculus, which was it's just unreasonable in how difficult it is. I graduated number 7 in my class and went to prestigious university here in the state of North Carolina with the idea that I was going to be a doctor. So I was going to go and do my 4 years undergrad and then, follow the logical steps. That's what I was told would happen. That's what I expected to happen. So when I get to college, the first year, the first week, they tell everyone who was a biology major with ideas of pre-med, oh, there's no way you're going to graduate in 4 years. What? That blew my mind. What do you mean there's no way I'm going to graduate in 4 years? That's the system. You go for undergrad for 4 years and then you move on to the next step. No, there was no way you're going to graduate in 4 years. And there was no way I was going to graduate in 4 years. It didn't make a difference how hard I worked. It wasn't in the cards. It wasn't in the cards then. And so that was the first glimmer that, this whole idea of what you're supposed to do, it's not going to pan out. Aside from the fact that I was one of the ones who did not graduate undergrad initially at that time, there were plenty of others who did. They went to school, they worked hard in the field they wanted to study in, they graduated with their degree, but then there was a problem. There was no jobs. But that's not how it's supposed to work. How it's supposed to work is you graduate from undergrad and then you move into your field of study to begin your life. But that's not how it was going. Oftentimes, people find them in the conundrum of, okay, I have this degree in this field, but when I try to apply for positions, they tell me that I don't have any experience, so they're not going to hire me. But how can I get any experience if no one hires me? So that means either you keep trying to get into positions that you're not qualified for, but they're in your field, but they won't hire you because you don't have any experience, or you have to find some other way to make money, which is why you find college-educated people working in restaurants or waiting tables or working in coffee shops because, they have to do something. It takes money to support yourself, especially if you don't want to go back and live with your parents. Some are fortunate their parents don't mind that and allow them to do it. And for some people, there's no way in the world they can or will go back home. So they have to find out some other way to support themselves. That doesn't fit into the whole system of work ethic as it is laid out for children and preteens and emerging adults. And then let's say, for example, you do get into your field. All right, you're in your field. That's great. Now it's time to work. It's time to work for someone else. And that is what you do. When you're working for someone else in whatever field you're in, then you start to engage into the politics of your profession, which oftentimes is just no different than high school. That's what's really disappointing. The politics of your profession is just like high school, with cliques and people that are over you and people that talk about you. And that's very disheartening because, when I got to high school, I was thankful to be away from all that stupid shit. And then you get into a job and it's like, oh no, it's no different. You still have to watch your back. Now it's from your coworkers or the ones that hired you, especially the ones that hired you. But then you have to work. And you'll be in situations where you'll work hard, just like they said you should, but it doesn't pan out. You don't get the promotion. You don't get the raises. And you realize that you're treated like you're some teenager trying to skirt responsibility, like you're lazy and you have to beg for everything. If you need to take a day off, it's begging and pleading and negotiating. And if you call out sick, you're made to feel guilty by your employer. Oh, we could have really used you today. As if you are, not actually sick. You're going to just take a road trip and go somewhere. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. But people who need their jobs aren't, some kid trying to duck class to go smoke in the back of the school as they would when I was in high school. No, you're there to work, but they treat you in a very punitive manner, as if they're trying to punish you before you have the opportunity to do anything. Well, most people just want to work and be able to take a vacation and then get back to work. But then I started to realize that you're in your profession and you work. And that's it. And you work and you toil. And maybe you're able to save enough so that when you retire, you'll be able to take care of yourself. Maybe. Depends on what your profession is. Depends on whether or not anyone has ever taught you how to, get a Roth IRA. What all those different retirement plans, which were foreign to me in my 20s. And somewhat foreign now, although I'm learning, especially in the black community. People don't learn this. People don't teach this. And you have to rely on, hopefully, as you get older, maybe you'll have some money saved. Maybe all this time that you put into working, when you get to Social Security, it'll be enough to support you. When oftentimes it is not. And when you're in your late 60s, early 70s, you find yourself rejoining the workforce. Oftentimes, when you could be too old, too frail, or too sick to be, and you shouldn't be out there working in the first place. This isn't what this whole little setup was supposed to be, but that's what it is. And so in doing my research about work ethic and learning that the work ethic was meant for the slaves, for the lower classes, and that the upper crust, whether it is the Romans or the Greeks who want to spend their time doing art or warfare or philosophizing, or whether it's the Calvinists or the followers of Martin Luther who were like, oh, if you work hard, you're ensured to get into heaven, where anyone else is just going to be condemned to hell. It divides everyone into classes. And here in the U.S., we work and we toil until we die, oftentimes with very little to show for it, and we make money for those who do not have to work as hard and have lots to show for it. Those who are in charge of the country, the political elite, those in Congress, those Republicans and Democrats, because neither one of them are exempt from this. If at any point they have done any work, hard work, meaningful work, that was long ago. And they do very little work now. To be honest, they do no work now. You cannot convince me that what they do a fraction of the year in Congress equates in any way to work. All they do is a lot of talking, but they have no problem talking at us, the working class, and letting us know that we are lazy, and letting us know that we don't work hard enough, and letting us know that we aren't deserving of any social safety nets. We need to grab ourselves by our bootstraps and work harder, when the majority of them left their bootstraps behind a long time ago, if they ever have them. Usually they have their hidden silver spoon somewhere. And this isn't me railing against the rich. No, it's about them looking down on us because we're not doing work that they have never done, when in truth we're always doing the work trying to better ourselves. And they're always in a position to be able to be better, to have what they need, to have that health care, to get that treatment, to be able to afford to do things, and they work very little. Especially career politicians like our president. He's been in Washington for, 40 years. And he'll tell you that he's done everything. He has done nothing, especially not any work. And now I want to focus on where we are right now in society and in history. We got hit with the COVID-19 pandemic in March of 2020. They wanted everyone to stay home. They kept saying 2 or 3 weeks, it'll be fine. But of course that has dragged on because people didn't want to do that. People had to stay home. Businesses closed down. People lost their jobs, had to go on unemployment. And then you had those like restaurant workers, not restaurant workers, grocery store workers, or nurses, people who are essential to things continuing to function, for us to be able to continue to get these vital goods and services like medical assistance and food. They had to work. But oftentimes these people had to work without hazard pay. They had to work where people would come in and they didn't want to wear their mask. They wanted to put them in danger because of their rights to be assholes and not care about their fellow man, essentially. So after an entire year of that, an entire year of jobs saying, hey, you have to come in, or hey, you have to do this, you have to do that, against your best judgment, against what is best for you and your family. Hey, you need to send your kids to school with the potential of them catching COVID. People have started to open their eyes and be like, you know what? I enjoyed my time at home. I enjoyed doing what I wanted to do. I enjoyed starting my own business. I enjoyed starting a t-shirt business or a jewelry business or learning how to do this or that. I enjoyed not having to answer to an employer who doesn't give a shit about me and has shown it over and over again, which leads to what they call the Great Resignation. They keep saying, oh, the millennials don't want to work. No, it's not they don't want to work. They don't want to subscribe to this American dream bullshit layout that they were served in school because it's bullshit. They don't want to toil for somebody else, making someone else money until they fucking drop dead. And some folks don't reach retirement. They drop dead well before, working themselves into an early grave. They see that everything that happened to them prior to the pandemic just culminated in a massive cloud of, we don't give a shit about you, but we want you to work for us. And they said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not doing that anymore. So that's why there are a lot of jobs out there with no one working in them because they don't want to go back to that shit. They want better for themselves. And now, they probably have already done this. I believe they have cut the unemployment of people who really need that. Cut out that extra funding. Oh, they've gotten lazy getting unemployment. Bootstraps. You need to do better. You need to work. And who is saying this? These lazy ass politicians who most have not worked a day in their lives, and all they do is sit around and talk and blow smoke and make money and do nothing more but hurt us. The ones who put them there, the ones who pay their salary for the rest of their lives, the ones who pay for them to have health care for the rest of their lives. So you need to think about, if you have sat and thought about, oh, the millennials are so lazy, they don't want to do this, they don't want to do that. Think about why they don't want to go back to work. Think about it. Because you have probably realized at some point, my job don't give a shit about me. They can fire me and replace me whenever they want to. Imagine coming to that realization and being able to do something about it. That is where we are right now. And it's a very interesting point in our history to be able for people to be like, you know what? I'm not going back to be treated like I'm less than human. I'm going to find some way to make it for myself. And many of them are. With the internet being what it is, there are plenty of vehicles that people can utilize to bankroll their own future without having to punch in and out of a time clock and work for a bunch of assholes who don't value you anyway. If you are listening to this on YouTube, if you would like to listen to the upcoming portion where I read chapter 4, you will have to go over to Spreaker and download the podcast from there.